Yahya, good morning. I am super privileged, super honored to have you on episode one of Necessity versus Commodity. Now, I'm starting this podcast because being a business owner, remote sales rep, I see a lot of people are just a commodity in most people's eyes, but there are a lot of people that have become extremely successful as a business owner, building a brand, even employees or like a sales rep, how they have leveled themselves up to now they're no longer viewed as just a commodity, something can be bought and replaced just like everything else, but you're a necessity to have either to hire them as a coach like yourself or as an employee to come in and do sales for a business. And I'm honored to have you because I met you, what's it been? It's been a little over a year and a half, right? Year and a half, almost 2 years ago we met.
I'm guessing two. I'm guessing closer to two.
Okay. Do you even remember how we connected?
I'm not sure, man.
I don't
we
either.
on Facebook, but I don't remember exactly how,
I don't either. But that's the beauty of social media. There, in no other way where you and I have ever been able to connect otherwise without social media. And, connecting with you, let's just say 2 years ago, you're someone I've never met in person, and I really truly can't meet you in person, give you a hug and say thank you because you do amazing things. And so I've been following you for 2 years on social media. I've watched you grow. You've also been so generous with coaching me several different times throughout this. We always have communication back and forth. We communicate on each other's and comment on each other's social media posts. You just do life and business the way that I always have, and that's always a really important thing to me. And you have a program called Record Breaker, which we'll kind of get into. And I kind of want to start with when we first met, like my personal story. Like a lot of people don't know like the past 2 years of my life, but I was in fitness for over 20 years, had my own brick and mortar business, moved into an online business also where I was helping people reverse rheumatoid arthritis naturally. Now, about 2 years ago, that both businesses, I was operating with my romantic partner at the same time. Her and I were together 9-10 years, so somewhere around that time. We separated. She had 3 children. I love them all deeply. And I love all 4 of them deeply still. They're amazing people. We're just no longer together. And so I lost that relationship. I technically lost 3 kids. We also had 2 businesses together. We tried to operate them as friends. It just didn't work. So I essentially said I'm making a pivot in life and started into more of a remote sales role. So you as a man, you understand most men, I mean, we put our identity in our relationship, what we do as a career, and how much money we can make. I lost all of that in a blink of an eye. And it was one of the hardest times of my life, and one of my personal brands is Call to Rise, which is, becoming essentially the greatest version of yourself. And I'm glad I had personal development in my life for 20 years. Otherwise, I never would have made it. I wouldn't have had the mental strength. I had physical strength and that knowledge, those 2 pieces, along with a faith in God as well. I never would have been able to make it. I don't know if I'd be here today if I wouldn't have had those in my life. But then I made a pivot to the remote sales industry. And I've worked with people like Matt Ryder at Sales Sniper, Jeremy Miner at NPQ, went through their programs, Sean Wade, Tony Haddad at Sales Boot Camp, JD Daly, Hunter, Sam at Undeniable Closer, Bill Walsh at the Objection Box. So over the last 2 years, I've been really hiring people that are a necessity to learn how to become very successful at this kind of area of my life, and have had amazing results with it through that process. Now, also, I've had some major failures as well during it, as we all know. And when we first met, I was right at the very beginning of that stage and right at the end of the other one. And meeting you, I think we met for an hour and a half the first time. About a month later, we chatted again. Those 2 times were so life-changing to me. And so I want to say thank you from my heart. I want to give gratitude from my soul, because you were somebody that it's right behind me. I have a lighthouse. That's the picture I bought my mom of being a shining light. You were that person. And every once in a while, kind of like I put up, motivational posts every day, you were that person that I could go to and watch a video. And you have so much free content, so much free education, real world tactics that you give out for free on your social media platforms all the time in your group. It was something that was a life raft, and really, and you were a guiding light for me. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart again for being who you are, and you have shown yourself on social media and who you are as a man, that you're a necessity in people's lives. So who are you, Yahya, and your program Record Breaker? Give some people a little bit of an idea of what you do.
All right. So first off, man, thank you very much for your extremely kind words about me. And that's perhaps one of the most beautiful things about what I do, where I get to hear people such as yourself thank me. I wouldn't even have imagined. And I get things like that from across the world. And so I think coaching and consulting is one of the most fulfilling professions one can have in modern day world, because we tend to live in a very, very, very fragmented and a very lonely society. So in a lonely and fragmented world, to have such a deep, intimate relationship with someone whom you've never physically met, but to profoundly impact them, that's a big deal. The question you asked me, who are you, Yahya? That'll take me forever to answer. But I often tell people that I've stopped identifying myself, because for the longest time I made the mistake. My background is about a couple of decades in corporate, growing companies, working my way up the rank in sales, marketing, anything and everything to do with brand management and sales, working up to divisional head, then country head, then regional president, essentially a commercial role. And then being hired by other companies to grow their companies or to set up their companies in exponential growth. But I stopped putting that label on myself a long time ago when I realized the power of labels. And that's something I work with people even today, because it's like, you can be the skinny kid in class, and you can grow up to be, jacked, and you have a lot of muscle, but in your mind, you're still the skinny kid. And you're still responding and operating as the skinny. So for me, identity is very important. The other day, I have a client in my program. He's making about 50 grand a month, he and his partner. And when he hired me, I told him what his problem was. He was like, we're going to scale and this, and my personal life is crumbling. I was like, because while you're making $50,000 a month in your mind, you're still a guy who's making 10 grand a month, and you're operating as that person. So you're not operating like someone whose true worth is 50 grand a month. Instead, you're operating like someone whose true worth is 10 grand a month. And you're hesitant to sort of embrace who you are. And then that led to a whole, new conversation about leads and prospecting. So Record Breaker, on the outside, is a business program. It's designed for coaches, consultants, business owners, entrepreneurs of any sort, to essentially break records. I mean, that's why that's the name. And so people tend to think it's breaking financial records, which it is. So you break your highest ever sales number, you break your highest ever profit that you've generated. But it's also more about breaking personal records. And the personal record could look like having the best ever time of your life with your romantic partner or your children or your family. A personal record could be sticking to something that you promised yourself you would do, but you've never quite been able to do. And just coming out the other end, which is something that people tend to shame themselves for. A personal record could look like a health record, lifting a certain amount of weight, dropping some element of body fat, anything along those lines. And it's interesting to be able to say that to you now, because I've been in the space for quite a few years. Because way back when I started, when I took my coaching business online, I've grown a lot of businesses to 8, 7, and 6 figures. My coaching business, my coaching consulting, Record Breaker is my 5th business, for the record. When I was taking it online, my coach told me, he's like, I was like, dude, I did, like, there's so many things. And my coach was like, most people have a problem where they're unable to figure out what it is, the one thing that they're good at that they can help people with. He said, you have the opposite problem. You have too many things you've done, or because obviously, Scott, with people like me and you at our age, there's a bunch of stuff we've done, and there's a bunch of things we've achieved, And I tell people that, I tell people, I'm not like a 15, 16-year-old kid who randomly made a ton of money. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy who went and made mistakes and learned the hard way and did it again, again before he taught someone else. So he was like, yeah, you have so many things. You have to pick. Like, you have to pick. Do you want to be the money guy? Because you can be the money guy. Do you want to be the health and fit? You and I, we both share a deep love for health and fitness. So it's like, you want to be a health and fitness, or do you want to be a relationship guy? And that's when I was like, all right, to start with, I want to be the mindset guy, because for me, in my journey and all.
Can we stop right there for a second?
Yeah.
Being in marketing, so in the past year as well. So I worked with Brendan Kelly at Video Growth Systems, which is taking an offer, a coaching or an agency, actually writing, crafting, branding that, and build ads to just book salespeople, sales calls on your calendar. So you can not just close them. To me, he's one of the best in the business because he actually handles the writing, the branding piece of it, rather than just following templates like so many offers out there. Mindset, such a umbrella term, so generic. And mindset is, using a term like that in branding is going to just put you in that level of commodity. How did you brand yourself? And I don't know if you did it in one day. If you feel like you perfected it, I think your branding, your content is spot on, amazing now. But choosing mindset, how did you decide, how am I going to brand myself for people to understand truly what you do?
All right. So I'm glad you brought that up, because when I say mindset, so I explain this to my clients, there's the back end, which is what we actually do. And then there's the front end, which is branding and marketing and what we sell. And they can be the same thing, but the front end looks nothing like the back end. And it lends to the adage of sell people what they want, give people what they need. Correct. And so the reason I was telling you mindset was because back then I was like, all right, I choose mindset because it allowed me to achieve the money. It allowed me to achieve the wealth, the health, the relationships. But I'm fortunate now to be sitting in front of you and tell you flat out that while my program Record Breaker is positioned as a money program, and yes, we help people, I think the highest we've done is 16x someone's income in a ridiculously short amount of time, but it is actually a business and a mindset program, equal parts, both equal parts. And this goes against conventional advice of, no, you should just sell one thing. And in people's minds, people don't mix mindset with money. And that, in my mind, you are the same person in every different aspect of your life. Yep. So it's a lot easier to operate as the same person in every area than to just assume, all right, now I'm business Scott, now I'm romantic Scott, now I'm mindset. No, you're the same guy.
Yeah.
And so from a brand point of view, from day one, to answer your question, from day one, so my program back then was called Free Your Mind, and it said how to get rid of stress, anxiety, and negative thoughts without fighting or suppressing them or popping pills.
How successful was that?
Extremely successful.
Beautiful.
It didn't hit seven figures, but it was up there in the six figures, extremely successful. And it was my first ever foray into the world of, online high ticket sales or online high ticket programs. So very successful. And I measure success perhaps differently. Right now, the answer I gave you is in terms of money. I qualified it, but it was successful in terms of establishing me as who I am, allowing me to influence, hundreds of people, probably by now thousands, but hundreds of people who've gone through the program, which is important. If you're working in the market today, even now, I tell people the best asset your business has is goodwill. It is goodwill, and goodwill is not built in a day. You don't get goodwill by flashing money on a screen, showing a jet on a screen. No. You build goodwill, slowly and gradually, and goodwill is built on behavior, the way you behave.
Yep.
And when do people judge behavior? When things go bad, not when things are good. Because when things are good, it's easy to be generous and authentic. It's when things go bad, when you're hit with a client refund, or you're hit with someone who has a problem, or you're unable to solve a problem. That's how I behave then determines the goodwill I'm going to carry.
And I couldn't agree more. And it's one thing, having so many clients over 20 years, I was the same person every time that they showed up. And having to build that brand and be in alignment with who I am, it attracted the right people to me.
Yeah.
And, when I started, a lot of that, it wasn't social media. It was in a building, right? So people were able to watch you when you weren't, knowing that they were watching you. And so you were building that trust of who you are, confidence in who you are. The beautiful thing is now you can do that on social media. And there's a lot of ways you can do that on social media. Sadly, you can also damage things really easy on social media as well. Yeah. So as you were growing your brand, did you immediately put yourself out on social media and start doing a lot of the lives that you do? Because those are some of the most impactful. If I'm on social media and one of your things pop up, I immediately just stop. I hear your voice. I normally hear your laugh, or I normally hear your tagline, "Hello, beautiful people," right? And one of those will catch me, and it just stops me in my track. Even if I just see a picture, I automatically hear your voice and your laugh in my head. So when you started on social media, how did you start kind of really doing that to get who you are out there, number one, and number two, to be able to kind of really talk about your brand so people go, I need to reach out and find out more about this?
All right, that's a great question. So I'll give a caveat here. I've worked in building, marketing, selling, launching, resuscitating some world famous brands like Chapstick and Imidine, which is an anti-aging cream. Chapstick, we all know. And so because I worked in companies like Pfizer, Takeda, Purdue, and I've looked at consumer portfolios and pharmaceutical portfolios. So I knew how to start up brands and how to do that. I've worked extensively in market research. I knew that. And from my background, I've been speaking on stage for about 25 years now. Back when I worked in corporate, you had to, at a certain level, you had to start giving presentations. And then as you go to regional roles, you become more and more of a public speaker. But to be honest, man, I've always enjoyed public speaking since school. Like I've been in school theaters and plays, and I would assume I'm a bit of a performer on the inside. Like I enjoy it, brings me to life. Right now, I do a lot of keynotes in business schools. I do them on entrepreneurship. I do them recently. I did it on how AI is going to integrate into health and fitness and gyms, and what the future of business for gyms and just generally health and fitness looks like in the next 5 years. Yeah, because it's right up my alley. So I do that. So there's that. To answer your question, and the reason I provided this big caveat is because a lot of people struggle with putting themselves out there. A lot of my clients struggle with putting themselves out there, and it's got to be done in pieces. It's got to be staggered. I didn't have that problem, and I'll tell you why. My circumstances when I started my online business were that I deliberately hadn't kept any backups. I left my job and I was like, I've been helping companies make money for about 10 years. Blue chip companies had been hiring me to set up and grow their businesses in countries that are considered hard to do business in. So corruption, red tape, a lot, the geopolitical instability and things of that nature. So I was like, if I can make them tens of millions of dollars, why can't I make myself $500,000?
Yeah, you developed the skill set. You had the confidence there. Yep.
Yeah. But I did not want a plan B, because plan Bs tend to make things worse.
Agreed.
So my circumstances were I left my job, I dipped into my fundings, I hired a coach, and I was like, tell me how to do this. I'm going to get this done. Now, a little insight into my personality, I am what is called a high performer, and I don't take pride in it. It's almost a curse. And you are too, by the way. You and I are both that. And everybody I work with is a high performer. Like I don't work with. So how does a high performer think? A high performer does not measure success and failure based on standard metrics. A high performer wants to be the best. He wants to beat the big dog and become the big dog. And so high performers will be people who come second or third in the race. And they're not feeling good about the fact that they came second or third. They're feeling bad about the fact that they didn't come first. And it's got everything to do with the way I was raised, being the eldest of three sons, and you're just being told you're the eldest, and people are looking at you and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the bottom line is, for me, it was make or break. Like, either I'm gonna rock this and I'm gonna do well, and that's it. Like, there is no other option. Having said that, I had to change the way I speak, not the way I speak, but the language I use. Coming from a corporate background, I was used to using very difficult words, and I was very intense. So the Yahya you see today is a lot more relaxed and happy and friendly, and that's the energy. 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever I started that, I was very serious, very intense. And I would use words that most people couldn't relate to. So my coach actually said that to me. He was like, you need to start using language that a 5-year-old can understand. And it's something I teach my clients to. I'm like, you think you're, because I work with people who are medically trained professional doctors and lawyers, and they're used to using jargons that nobody, so I'm like, you think you're sounding smart. You think you're sounding intelligent. You're not. They're not understanding what you're saying. They're not going to nobody's going to ask you, what does this word mean? Because no one likes looking stupid. Correct. And they'll just go away. So a huge part of audience retention is actually using the simplest possible language to communicate a complex process or a mechanism.
Well, and I think that's a very powerful thing too. Like working with a client, taking something that might be complex or difficult and make it simple so it can easily be done, right? Whether it's a mindset shift, whether it's something to do physically for your body, whether it's an adjustment in your business. If you overcomplicate something, and it's one of the biggest problems I see out there with so many of these business courses out there, they give you 40 hours worth of videos to watch. Do you not understand? I don't have 40 hours. And by the time I'm finished with that, we're 6 months and it's a failure and I've given it up. And so that is very key. And that's one thing I always love about watching your videos. They are very easy to understand. You're engaging, you pull people in. The content is always something, boom, I just listened to something that was 3 minutes. I can go do this action right now. And I understand why I'm doing it, the benefit I'm going to get, and the desire to actually want to do it. That's not something that's very, very common these days. Most people go way too long-winded trying to overcomplicate it to make it sound like it's more valuable, rather than, hey, the result is the valuable part. How you get there, the quicker the better, is more valuable to me. And talking about when you first started with content and going, hey, you're on a corporate world, you're talking to doctors, you do have a different language. And I see a lot of businesses or people are going out there on social media, or even a sales rep, that they don't know how to actually talk with the person in front of them. Mm. And I see this a lot with sales reps where they're talking to someone like you. Oh gosh, his company, makes 6-7 figures every single year. They're way above me. I don't know how to talk to them, and they just lock up, right? And so the communications will break down. You're going to lose that sale because you're not comfortable. And so then you doubt yourself and you go back down to selling something to $50 rather than $50K, when $50 and $50K are the same, just as easy to say, right? Now, the other problem I see is when people launch, and you brought something unique up, that you were speaking, even though you were comfortable speaking and going online, you were speaking incorrectly. A lot of new coaches, I think I see, or people are trying to brand themselves, they're speaking incorrectly because they're so nervous and tense to put themselves out there. Do you see your clients, like you alluded to it earlier, that like getting them to like mama bird pushing a baby out of the nest, like, your time to fly, go do this. Yeah. The hesitation, a lot of people, when I feel like they don't know what to do, how to approach it, what's the best way to go about it. So when they finally do it, they're so nervous. They built up this huge stress all the way through their nervous system, their mind, their body's just locked up. Why do you think some people's content fails or hits really, really good like yours does?
All right. So so I'm super passionate about content and reverse engineering virality. Yes. And I can go on and on forever about this. And you can reverse engineer it. It is easy. The way social media works nowadays, it's very easy to understand a sequence. So more often than not, like you said, people put a lot of pressure on themselves. Why? Because most people are afraid of being judged. Why? Because that's how people are raised. Like, is my hair looking nice? What if my aunt sees this? What's my aunt going to think? What if Uncle Jerry sees this? Uncle Jerry's going to be like, oh my God, who do you think you are? Yeah. So, and I face the same. And for me, I've always been the sort, like, I don't care much about culture, like whatever's culturally appropriate. Like I couldn't care in the least. So my wife, for example, she talks a lot about how culture, people, different parts of the world, this may not apply, but she was talking to me yesterday about how people tend to weave religion into culture and then use that to get other people to do things they want them to do. Whereas religion never says anything about that. But she's like, cultural indoctrination. So I'm like, aren't you happy you got married to me? I couldn't care less about culture and our kids aren't going to be. She was like, well, yeah. So I didn't have that problem, but there is always the fear, like, what if Uncle Jerry sees me? What if my friends from college see me? And by the way, I found out later on that some of my ex-colleagues had seen me and they had, cracked jokes about, oh, look at Yahya now. He's going there. He thinks he's a coach and this, that, and the other. Yeah. So it's interesting because I just made a post about this on social media. And I was like, the next time you're afraid of being vulnerable and putting yourself out there, just keep in mind that the people who judge you on social media are not the people who pay your bills. You're the person who pays your bill. But here's the thing, because people are afraid of that, they try to be someone they're not. They try to be Mr. Perfect, right?
More, yes.
So I was speaking to a friend of mine, like I was speaking to a prospect, and I was like, well, she's like, what's your process like? I was like, I pull out my camera, put it here, and let's go, right? That's my thing. Because inspiration strikes, like when it's got to be captured when it strikes.
Yeah, and inspiration comes to me more often, like in conversations like this.
Yeah.
Than, oh, at 1 o'clock, I need to pull out my phone and do a live video, right? Like that's not inspirational. Nope. That's nothing there. And, before we go a little bit farther into what you were saying, I want to go back and you kind of talking about like identity at the very beginning. You're afraid that auntie this or the person from 5th grade who bullied you is going to see it and make a bad comment, right? The biggest shift in my mind what helped me to really start going out there online, and I don't do a lot of video stuff online. A lot of my stuff is, I'm posting about mindset, physical, faith, different things of that nature. I'm more into like my thought process through what I'm seeing wrong and good also in business and in sales and all of those pieces. The thing on identity, knowing yourself, it's one of the things I try to coach my clients on, is being unapologetically yourself. First off, you have to learn who you are, to be unapologetically yourself, and then be comfortable in that skin. One of the biggest things for me, which was a game changer, the way that I shifted about worrying about other people. The people that are closest to me, my mom, my dad, my brothers, all of them, they actually have a different perception of who I am. So if the people closest to me don't even know who I am, the people that don't know me, their perception, every one of my clients, I've had thousands over the years, every single one has a different perception of who I am. Every person I've ever met in my life has a different perception of who I am. So if I'm going to focus on the negative of what someone might perceive of me, you're not going to go anywhere in business. And I can't control what anybody thinks about me, right? It's one of the reasons why I try to carry myself very well, the same way as you do, because you can have 10 years of someone absolutely adoring you, thinking you're amazing. They love your content, this or that. And then they see you out in public and they see you yell at your kid. All of a sudden, all that's damaged, right? So carrying yourself, but that perception of everybody, you can't control it, right? So don't worry about things you can't control. Worry about the things you can control. Carry yourself the way that you expect yourself to carry yourself, and reach to become better. And talking about being a high performer, I know how do I get 1% better today than I was yesterday?
Absolutely.
And keep that path going and hold yourself to a certain standard. Sometimes you have to have grace at times of, that's been one of the hardest things over the last 2-3 years, is sometimes giving myself the grace when that high performer mind kicks in.
Yeah.
But my recovery day, my mental or emotional, whatever it may be, going, dude, you didn't do anything today, when I needed that time though as well, right? And balancing some of that out. And so when your clients start putting yourself out there, what are some of their biggest wins they see immediately? Because lots of times, again, it's a fear to move forward, right? And it's kind of like being a kid and you're scared there's a monster in the closet until you get up and look and there's no monster there.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest shift that you see with people when they start putting stuff out, when you've kind of coached them through doing that?
All right. I just want to go back and I just want to say something. You know, when you talked about not being you, not being yourself, and being this person to make other people happy and fitting other people, it took me 30 years to be myself, to learn to be myself. First 30 years of my life, I'm also, so like a high performer. There's a couple of other things that I'm recovering from. One is being a perfectionist, and the other is being a people pleaser. Like, you got to make everyone happy. You got to make everyone like you.
You and I are just way too much alike.
I know, man. So
why we connected immediately.
Yeah. So people often ask me, they're like, in Record Breaker, do you go around like kicking your clients in the ass and telling them to get their stuff? I'm like, no, I pretty much do the opposite. They're already beating themselves up. They're already judging themselves harsher than anybody else will ever judge them.
Gosh.
So
yes.
Yeah. So it's almost, I got to tell, slow down, relax. It's fine. You're good. That's the mind of someone who's so extremely achievement oriented. I've injured myself physically because I wanted to lift more, get bigger, this, that, and the other. That's why I'm heavy on recovery now. Like, I will get my 8 hours of sleep. I'll get all my I skipped a workout today because I was like, nope, don't need to work out. I'm good. Now, so having said that, because it took me 30 years, it just so happened that by the time I got on social media, I was pretty comfortable in my skin.
Beautiful.
And I stopped trying to make people like me, and I stopped caring about what people thought of me, because I'd gone through enough life experiences to sort of learn that, I am the captain of my ship, and I don't want to live other people's version of me.
Yeah.
When my clients do this, it just so happens that with people like the sort of people I work with, they're just doers. And I just tell them, do this, do this, do this. And they've usually in their lives, they've overcome certain things enough times to be able to be like, yeah, sure, I'll overcome this. So what I've done is I've reverse engineered everything, and I've broken it down into easy to follow steps to be on camera. So like, people will tell you good lighting, no, doesn't matter. All people care about is what you're saying and how you're saying it. So I tell, and you brought up something beautiful where you said inspiration doesn't come at like 4 o'clock where you need to put out content. So for me, I don't know if some people notice, some people don't. I always do video at a certain time in the day. And the reason is, more often than not, that video is right after my group coaching calls. I am bursting with inspiration.
Yeah.
I'm bursting with idea. So one of the things I tell people about content creation is stop trying to think about what you want to stop. You don't have to worry about what you already know, what your audience want to hear. You already know what your clients are struggling with. Just talk about that. Because a lot of people operate in an echo chamber where they think they should preach about what's worked for them and what's been great for them. But other people don't understand because they're not at that level yet. So if you want to be a good content creator, you have to lower yourself down to the level of your audience and then speak using their words about their problems and how you can help solve their problems, or how they should solve their problems. If I started speaking about my problems and my philosophy and this, I mean, I do once in a while from a personal point of view, but content, if anything, has less to do with us and more to do with the audience. Yeah. So the early wins that people would, the early win is people connecting. Like, someone can watch, and I'm not, although I teach. So ironically, Wednesdays, we have our group call, and one of the topics was, how do you play the Facebook algorithm to boost your content when you know you're going to be putting out an offer post, which is a work with me post, because very few people comment on that. So I explained to them that I put up a couple of offer posts which had 2,000 or 3,000 views. Very little comments, because it's you're not going to get a lot of comments, but you need to say, hey, this is what I do. If you want to reach out, work with me. And people generally hesitate in offering their services. Like, this is
normal. Can we stop there for a second?
Yeah.
because that is so unique. And I don't think that a lot of people understand that, right? There's some big time players that I'm going to use somebody like Eli Wild. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, yeah.
So he has tons of followers, right? He puts something out, there's just tons of comments, likes, blah, 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 all of his posts. The one he says, hey, I'm doing a live coaching, who's joining, which is basically a call to action. No likes, no comments, it's freaking crickets, right? And I think that a lot of people don't understand that part of it, of their very first live is, hey, I'm Scott, I'm a personal trainer, I'm going to help you lose 10 pounds, book a call with me, and then it's just crickets. Number one, everything about that post was completely wrong, right? But even as being a very successful individual like you are, you already know, hey, I'm doing a call to action post right now. I'm not going to get any comments, I'm not going to get any likes on it, not like the one I did yesterday where 1,000 people all commented. The good thing is, those same 1,000 people saw it anyway.
Yes, yes. So,
and that's the important part to understand, right? Like, we're not in the business of how many likes, how many comments. That doesn't pay the bills. Are you impacting people's lives? Are you changing people's lives with your content? Are you being yourself? And if you're providing enough value, and again, one of the things I said at the very beginning, the value you put out is so insane. It goes with like Alex Hormozy's, you know, and I'm a firm believer in this too. Give away everything for free and sell the implementation.
Yeah.
Right.
So mine. Yeah.
And so I can go to your page. It's not like I'm actually working with you one-on-one, but maybe I'm not ready to work with you one-on-one, but all of the information you're going to give me is going to get me to that point where I'm finally going to reach out to you that day. Hey, I've been following you for the last 12 months. Today's the day. Let's go.
Dude, that literally happened to me on Monday. Somebody left a comment on YouTube. He was like, I've been following you for a year and I'm now and I love everything. And you've helped me so much. I have now earned the money to be able to work with you. Can I book a call? Monday books a call. Tuesday he's in. And I know for a fact that he's gonna go, like he loves my stuff. He's just gonna do more. So people pay for proximity. But I want to go back because this is an important concept that you said. People become engagement junkies. They become validation junkies. I've been that guy myself.
Mental masturbation is what I call it.
Yeah. So one of the first things I tell people when they're in Record Breaker is stop thinking like an influencer. Start thinking like an entrepreneur. You're here to do business. You're not here to get likes and comments and validation and blah, blah, blah. That's a completely different game.
Yes.
And so if you just, when I explain it, I tell people, take off your consumer hat, like, oh, how many people like my picture? How many people show, and put on your marketeer hat. How are you going to play the algorithm? What is the message you're giving out? Like, you know, for a fact that a call to action post, or especially a sales post, is not going to, it's going to get crickets. Like, we know that for a fact. Are you going to let that upset you? No. Because it's got to go out there. It's got to be part of your secret. That's the whole reason you play the algorithm, so that a whole bunch of people see your stuff, and then some people will DM you. It's so, to me, marketing, and you can think about it like people get, this is one of the things that trips people up. Oh, it's a direct message. Am I going to feel sleazy or spammy? Oh, it's a post. To me, everything is a touch point. Whether it's video or a story or a post or long form or short form or a mess, it's just a touch point. Now, I'll give you an example that I give a lot of people. You work, let's say you work on the 10th floor in a building, and I'm sure your audience are going to enjoy this example. Let's say you work on the 10th floor of a building, and every day at 12 o'clock sharp, you go to the elevator and you press the down button, you go down to the ground floor because there's a nice, very nice restaurant there and you have lunch there. Every day you do that, 12 o'clock sharp, Scott presses the down button for the elevator. And every day at 12 o'clock and 7 seconds, the elevator stops at the 5th floor and Mark gets in. Mark works on the 5th floor. He just happens to take a lunch break at the same time as you do. The first week that you and Mark share and it's like, how long does it take to get from the 5th floor to the 10th floor, to the ground floor? Like 5 seconds or 10 seconds, maybe?
30 seconds tops, yeah.
Yeah. So in the first week, you and Mark will start recognizing each other. And so the third or the fourth time, one of you, he gets in the elevator, you're going to be like, you're just going to nod towards him. The second week, you guys will know each other's names and you're going to be, hey man, how's it going? The third week, one of you is going to invite the other to have lunch. Whether you're going to be, hey, man, why don't we? Now, what happened? Nothing happened. That there's no marketing, nothing. The two of you shared some space together and were reminded. So marketing, and
love this analogy.
I hate to put it this way, but marketing is literally subconscious programming. If you see something enough times and you hear it enough times, and as long as you feel neutral or positive towards it, because if you feel negative, you're not going to, as long as you feel neutral or positive, you're going to feel like you know and you like and you trust it. Brands have been doing it for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So the trick is to stop thinking like a consumer, to stop thinking the way we're programmed to think. Like if you put up a picture and no one likes it, then that's a bad thing. What if you did it deliberately? I'm a staunch advocate of not just attraction marketing, but polarizing content. I believe in polarizing people. I believe in telling my audience, if you don't resonate with the way I see the world and my worldview and my faith and this, that, and the other, go away. I'm not the guy for you, right? So, and there's too many people afraid of that. Like the same guy I was giving you an example, he's making 50 grand a month, music producing business. He's a coach who coaches other artists on getting their music business up and running. Now I was like, what makes you special? He's like, because I get shit done. I get things done. That's why I've been successful. I'm like, do you show that to your audience? He's like, no. I don't want to come across as being too aggressive. I don't want to be that. And our artists are sensitive, and they're going to say, who are you to, shit over all our dreams? It's going to happen when the universe aligns. I was like, well, my philosophy is that the universe provides, but you got to put energy to it. Like you got to put action. So you do your level best, and then you shut off and you go to bed, and then you wait for God and the universe to give you. But if you're not doing anything, you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs, and you're like, well, randomly there's $1 million. I mean, they say if you want to win the lottery, go buy the ticket at least. And so I was like, those aren't your people. They're never going to work with you. Like no matter. And I learned this from my days as a people pleaser, because I bent over backwards to make certain people like. They're not. And it's not my job, man, to make everybody like me. Like I shouldn't. That's their view, and they're entitled to think of me as however they want to think. So it's about putting on the right hat when creating content.
There's a lot of little nuggets you dropped there, and I hope a lot of people picked them up. One of the ones I want to kind of focus on too of. You have polarizing sometimes is a bad word, right? Because that means you're being aggressive and pushing a bunch of people away. No, you're in your lane, very specifically talking about this, right? And there are going to be a good percentage of people that have a different view on the route that you're taking. But that's every way in life, right? Like the amount of times people told me I'm on the wrong path in life, like over the last 45 years, it's insane, right? Like, no, this is my path. Now, as a perfect example, you had a guy that followed you for a year and then reached out and said immediately, I'm ready to go. You probably spoke to him for 10, 15 minutes, set him up, took his money, ready to go. He's a new client. It's because you were speaking to him. Those are the people you're speaking to. Too many times we're trying to speak to everybody.
Oh yeah, big mistake.
Yeah, and so now you're speaking to everybody, and let's just use an easy number, 100, and you're trying to sell these 90 that will never pay you $1. And you're spending all this time and energy trying to do this to get likes, to get comments. It's never gonna make you successful. And that's where the being polarizing is. It's talking to those 10 that within one of them is going to reach out and be like, hey, I'm ready to go. Right now, you're not going through mass marketing and trying to get every lead you possibly can. Every person you speak to, you're not trying to beat them over the head and drag them into your program. And the clients are starting with you, like you said, with him, from the moment he starts, dude, he's on fire and he's going to be a huge testimonial. So which type of client do you want? Do you want one that you're going to have to drag in? You're going to have to drag them through the whole program. They're going to get half the result. They're going to be crabby. They're going to be pulling you down, taking all this energy. Some will even ask for their money back. Or the guy that comes in rocks and rolls and becomes your next testimonial that was making 10,000 a month and within 60 days now is making 50K a month. Which client do you want to work with? Right. And that's why you have to be polarizing. Right. And polarizing, again, it's often so negative, but polarizing is actually, that's where you're in a market dominating position.
Absolutely. So
And you
if you've
position
heard,
yourself that way.
yeah, I'm a huge fan of Tim Ferriss, the author of the 4-Hour Body,
4 Hour Work Week, one of the best newsletters of all time too.
Right. And so, yeah, exactly. So Tim's philosophy is he has the philosophy of 1,000 true raving fans versus 1,000,000 fans who kind of sort of like him, who are lukewarm. I subscribe to the same philosophy. You've been following me a long time. You've probably seen fights break out on my feed because, you know, someone will take a dig at me and then my clients will jump in and they'll like, you want that to happen because you want, you know, you're a brand, you know, your content works when it gets to a person on a very deep level. Like one of my content coaches once told me that, you know, you should create content, if it's philosophy or if it's something, you should create it with the aim that it should keep someone up at night. Now, whether it keeps them up at night feeling good about themselves, or if it keeps them up at night, you know, deciding to do something about their life because they've been sitting around doing nothing, doesn't matter. It got to them. So you know you're doing well in content when someone takes out the time from their day to sit down and either hate on it or to compliment you. Doesn't matter. Polarizing, polarizing does, a lot of people confuse polarizing for being rude or being aggressive.
Yeah.
No, you can be, you can just say something like, I'm a man of faith. I believe God does this for me. You just polarize your audience who don't believe in faith. They're going to go away. It's fine. You don't need to be, you don't need to be a jerk about it. You can be very loving and kind and still.
You want to know my most polarizing state?
No, go ahead.
Manifestation is the biggest bullshit thing out there that coaches teach right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the whole manifestation thing is garbage, you know, and the people that are out there teaching it and then using that like course material wise to, especially in business courses. And I always ask people, okay, the first person can manifest a bag of $50,000 within the next 24 hours. I will give you $1 million. Because you can't manifest a bag of $50,000. You can't meditate and manifest underneath a blanket in your closet for the next 3 weeks and magically have $1 million business show up. It doesn't work that way. Visualization, goal planning, I understand that. And then taking the actions you need to is where that shows up.
Yeah.
And the more actions you take, the more positions you put yourself into to where then luck happens. It wasn't luck. You just failed so many times and you put yourself in those positions, right? Like if I use an example of like you made a comment, the guy said, hey, I've been following you for a year. I'm ready to go. If he would have hopped on that call with you without that comment, right? And just booked a call. And within 10 minutes, he's like, I'm ready to go. Here's my credit card. And you've been manifesting, you know, for the past week. A lot of times people go, oh, I was having a really horrible week. And then I manifested a client. They came out of nowhere. Dude, you didn't manifest that. That didn't come out of nowhere. That was a year of actions, very deliberate, successful actions that you took to get that one person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we look at every single day, you spent, let's just say 30 minutes every single day for the past year, 350 days, 30 minutes, you're talking how many hours is that or day, you know, 160 hours, let's say. So for 2 days worth of work, like 48 hours, 50, 72 hours, it's put it at 50 hours worth of work. You got a client to pay, a perfect client to pay you a premium price to get a magical result from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't manifested. That was a very deliberate everything. So that's my biggest polarizing take out there in the world right now is the manifesting, because I've seen it, just that momentum grow over the past 5-7 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's turned into, it's fortunately or unfortunately, man, I what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing there's certain big names in the industry. One of them's passed away, and they had a program, and there's people who are selling that program. And I'm like, cool, you're selling that program. Have you been able to manifest anything from it? And nope, I haven't. So my bone of contention with people is people's approach generally towards life.
I didn't know you had the same take as I did. I'm very happy that you do. I was worried I might offend you right there. So,
yeah, dude, I'm a man of action. I teach people to manifest. I mean, I'm manifesting stuff daily, but like half the job is showing up. 50-70% of the work is done when you show up, even when you don't feel like it, because that's critical. You got to show up and you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So my bone of contention is people have this approach about anything in life that it will make me money. Now, the it can be crypto, the it can be whatever's popping at the moment, and I've seen this for 20, 30 years now.
Agreed.
When I used to work in pharma, I was going around buying factories, and I saw tons of factories being set up because people thought there was money to be made in manufacturing pharmaceutical medication. What they didn't look at was the sales and marketing. Like, you need to get licensing, you need to get people to give you contracts to manufacture. And so people across the world are conditioned to be like, you're not good enough. Just find something that's growing and jump into it and hang on for the ride. So my thing is, instead of being like, it will make me money, go the opposite and be like, I will make money using it, or I will make it money. And then you can do whatever you want. Like you can make money and that's one of the, like, when people are confused about their niche or their offer, I'm like, what do you enjoy? Just assume people are like, no, I see more money in business. I'm like, no, just assume you can make the same amount of money doing all three things. Which one do you want to do? They're like, I want to do this. I'm like, good. Then you're doing it because you're going to be doing it for the long run. Yeah. Because the long run is where the results really start to compile, like stack up. So this guy who came to me from YouTube, he said, yeah, one of the biggest problems I struggle with is consistency. And I noticed that every single week in the year, you put out 2 videos consistently. There you go. So,
and that's a key component right there too. Longevity and consistency. That's also where I see a lot of businesses and coaches really fail. They put out a post Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then you see nothing from them for like 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's not consistent. And subconsciously people see that. And there's a negative reaction, like, hey, this person isn't consistent. They're not consistently showing up. So therefore they must not really be that interested in their business. Right? Like that's just some subconscious weird stuff that people's brains go through. Now, also, you talked about touch points. Consistently getting a touch point every couple of days in front of somebody is way more important than 4 days and then silence for a month, because in that month they forget about you.
Absolutely. 100%.
And those are those game changer pieces. Know what really sucks more than anything though?
Yeah.
Your time is up. You're going to have to jump to a call shortly. I was watching the clock and going, oh my gosh, I don't want you to be late for your next meeting or anything like that.
We've got 15 minutes. We can go for another 10 minutes.
And that's what I was going to say is, over the next 5-10 minutes, what are some key things that you open the floor? Like is there a thing on top of your mind, either to bless somebody with a major gift, something to, hey, this is going to be a major hurdle that you're going to see in your life, or something, hey, if you're dealing with this is how I solve it. Having 5-10 minutes, is there anything that you want to just go with whatever's on your heart right now?
So one of the things that I'm seeing a lot nowadays, and you talked about content and somebody signing on and touch points, it's people, we tend to place our value based on the last cool thing we did. So last month, how much money did I make? That's my value. Last piece of content that went viral, that's my value. Influencers tend to do that.
That
last picture, right?
That would have hit. Right. That would have really hit home. Yeah.
And that really ruins the energy with which we show up in our business. So these people who go hard for like 2 weeks and then they're like, oh, whatever, screw it. I'm not in it. I don't want to do it. It's because they're putting value on the wrong thing. So I often tell people that you need to, and it sounds cliched, man, but you really do need to fall in love with the journey itself and not like last week's result. Because last week could be a great week. It doesn't mean you've become better. Last week could be a horrible week. Doesn't mean you become worse. Like there's fluctuations, and that's why for a lot of small businesses or solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, I always suggest to have your income, which is not the same as your business's profit for that month. Business profit is separate. Income should be separate. Income should be stable. So it gives you some sense of stability where like, okay, everything's fine. And don't get greedy when you make a lot of profit. Take that money, reinvest it, grow the business, invest in other places. That's one thing. The other
right there.
The other thing is a lot of people, so they're objective driven, and it's like, what's the objective that I'm aiming for? And so people often get confused because we want to have the cake and eat it too. And so the example I gave was, I want to have the like, why can't I get all the likes and all of that and make the money? Well, you can, but the people who are doing that, they've reverse engineered the process and they understand how to do it, and they've built a tribe big enough. And so the easiest way to start, so what's people's problems right now? People's problem is, I want to grow a business. I want to be in social media. No one notices me. Like no one, and I'm wearing the same shirt as that other influencer, and I'm putting on like, I made a post a couple of months ago where I would sometimes film video when I came back from my company, and I'd be wearing a suit or a jacket, and I'd just sit down and shoot. Because for me, it was more important to capture the idea I had than to like change. But I saw a bunch of people putting on like a suit jacket and filming a video. Now, I've worn suit jackets for 35, 40 years of my life. Yeah. I can spot a well-fitting jacket from like 100 feet. I can tell that is this off the rack, or is it tailored? Is it bespoke? And you can immediately tell that the person is busy fiddling with like the sleeve, or the collar doesn't, like they're feeling weird because they're not used to it. And it's so the easiest way to stand out in 2023 is to be you. Now, if you're comfortable in a t-shirt, just wear what you're comfortable in. No one cares how you look. No one cares about your hair. No one cares about the lighting. No one cares. I've studied lighting. I've studied lighting and sound design and this, that, and the other, because I've also gone down the route being a recovering perfectionist of like, everything's got to be perfect. No one cares.
You want to know something about that? Actually,
go ahead.
The last 2 months, I've been planning on launching this podcast, and I haven't, because I'm like, I hate my light. I don't have the perfect microphone. I don't like my backdrop because it looks like the picture is out of place. I have no idea. That picture is completely lined up behind me. My computer's flat. I don't know why that they work and it's off-centered. And I'm someone, I love symmetry. So it's funny, sometimes I'll notice the picture, but those little stupid things took away 60 days of what I could have been taking action.
Yeah.
And that is just stupid. And I agree with you. Now, would I like a better? Yeah, 100%. Do I need it? No. And it doesn't really matter. And the people that it's going to matter to, again, they're not your tribe. They're not ever going to be the person that's actually going to, hey, you've changed my life. I want to work with you. Right. That doesn't really matter. So I think that's a really powerful piece of nugget is well for people. So yeah,
the advice I find myself giving people the most often, is to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients, he helps people avoid divorce, and it's an expensive process in most parts of the world. And so he had a month, he worked his business up to about 30, 40 grand. And then 1 month he was hit with refunds for about 26 grand. And he was like, man, I was like, what happened? He's like, well, everybody would join because he's very good at sales. And then there wasn't enough stickiness. You need to design that into a program, early wins, early results.
Correct.
He didn't have that. And so people were leaving. So he's like, oh my God, we sold 30 or 40 grand, 30 grand, let's say 30 grand worth of sales and 26 grand worth of refunds. So sales for this month were only $4,000. I was like, no, sales for this month were $30,000. Refunds for this month were $26,000. He was jumping to the conclusion that he had a sales problem and he had to make more sales. So this is how micro zooming in destroys the way we we inaccurately misdiagnose a problem. And he was like, I need to make more. So I was like, no, sales are fine. You just need to build a little stickiness into your program. You'll be fine. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Thank you for saying, because if fixing a sales problem is a lot more costlier and takes a lot more time versus just fixing a stickiness problem. You and I have made enough programs. We know it's easy to do. It's easy to do. It's a simple problem. So people will sometimes blow a problem way out of its proportions because they're too zoomed in and they don't see the bigger picture. Video, same thing. Like, oh my God, I made this one mistake. I should have said good, and I said would, and oh my God, it doesn't matter. Like half the people weren't even paying attention. I make mistakes all the time on video, man. If you actually watch my videos and you pause it, I'll make mistakes. It doesn't matter.
I couldn't agree. And I am so like so much of me just wanted to jump through the screen right there because you brought up one of my biggest frustration points with the online market right now. And I know we have about 2 minutes here. So this is going to be a cliffhanger because this is episode number 1. And this is part 1 with you because we're definitely doing this again.
Sure, absolutely.
But you hit a major thing that I see with entrepreneurs and business as well. Like you said, they're looking at a result, they're focusing on the wrong data and trying to fix the wrong thing. Fulfillment in this industry has gone to garbage.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Garbage. And that was his problem. He didn't know fulfillment was an issue, and then he focused on the sales.
Yeah.
You helped him fix his fulfillment, and I'm sure the next month they had 30 in sales and had 0 refunds, right? Problem solved. Where if he would have focused on the sales, dude, he would have had that same problem and it would have just compounded to a disaster in a very short amount of time. That's a game changer to have somebody on your side like yourself to look at the real thing and go, no, this is the issue. And so fulfillment is one of those points that, oh my gosh, it's so infuriating for the amount of businesses and coaches I've talked to that won't take a step forward to solve their problem because they burn from by so many other fulfillment issues. And it's a problem that needs to be solved big time and called out in this industry, I believe. So
I think this industry, I know we have a minute, this industry suffers from 2 big problems. And we can continue this in part 2, but the 2 big problems are a lot of people and their mom jumped into this industry 5-7 years ago because they thought it's a growing industry and there's easy money to be made.
Yep.
So this is not the coaching industry. It happens in it's the gold rush. Every industry goes through that. A bunch of people jump into crypto as well, online. Yep. Yeah. And the other problem is that with this industry right now is fragmented between the really good people, the ones who know their stuff, but they refuse, due to their insecurities or whatever reason, they refuse to embrace sales and marketing. So no one finds out about them. They're the good ones. They have great fulfillment, but they refuse to. And then we have the internet marketeers who just know how to do a great job of sales and marketing. They couldn't care less about. Some of them are good at fulfillment. Most of them are not. And they don't really
all they're caring about is that monthly income.
Yeah. But those guys get the masses coming to them because they know how to get themselves out there. And I like working with the first group.
Agreed.
And enabling them and empowering them. And then the thing about being burnt, man, a lot of people tell me, like, so my ideal client is ideally someone who's joined a couple of programs, been unsuccessful, gotten burnt, and then comes to me because I help them unlearn. I'm like, think about it from a medical point of view. You have a shoulder impingement and you went to one doctor and a second doctor, and you didn't like the way they diagnosed you. Are you going to live with the problem for the rest of your life? No, you're going to go get a third opinion, a fourth opinion. If one medicine doesn't work, you're going to try. So why would you it's exactly the same decision? It's exactly the same mechanism.
Correct.
But it's like the emotional story and the emotional turmoil we create within ourselves.
Yeah.
And take decisions based off of that. Zooming out. Always zoom out.
Yep. And know what your data is telling you. Right. Like that's a key indication too. So I couldn't agree more. And I'll let you go. I know you've got to get ready for your next session. We will be in contact over the next couple of days. We are going to get episode 2. That's really powerful stuff, whether it's next week or the week after, we'll get that up. But again, I can't thank you enough for being on episode 1. I can't thank you enough for our relationship over the last 2 years. And I'm really grateful for where this is going to continue to go from here as well.
Likewise, Scott. I can't wait.
I can't
Can't wait, man.
have a good rest of your day. We'll talk soon, brother.
All right, brother. Bye-bye.
Bye.